We're going to look at section 0.5, number 17. Log of the square root of x is equal to -1. So before I show you the algebra, I really want to emphasize the importance of thinking about this graphically and also conceptually, so we get some idea of what we're talking about here in terms of making sense. So in order to graph this function, I'm going to rely on the parent function, which is just the log of x. And as we remember, the log of x looks like this. You can think of it as the inverse of 10 to the x, and we know that that's going to go up, and therefore the log is going to go down, and as x approaches 0, the limit as x approaches 0 is -infinity, and we also know that it's going to go up slowly, and it's going to contain the point 1, 0. Why is that? Because if you don't see a number here and it's written as log as opposed to ln, then there's usually a 10 in here. And so what we're saying is 10 to the y power is equal to x. So if x is 1, we're saying 10 to the 1, or well, we're saying 10, okay, to some power is equal to 1. Well, the only thing that could be is 0, because anything to the 0 power is going to be 1. Trust me, that's a 0. So that means that this point 1, 0 is going to be in every log function, including this one. So now what I want to do is just graph the square root of x, and you see that it has the basic same shape. It goes a little bit higher here and then a little bit lower here, but it still contains the point 1, 0, and it still has a limit as x approaches 0 of -infinity. Now, what we're looking at here in this question is 10 to the, the square root of x, so that's here. When does this function, this darker function, equal -1? Well, we can see it's way down here. So I'm just going to put a point there. If I can stick that on there. Okay, and this is going to be equal to, we want to see where that's equal to -1. So for what x value does that equal -1? Well, you can see it's a very small number. Okay, in fact, this right here is 0.1, so it's less than 0.1. So that's a general idea of what we're expecting to see, a very small number here. And you can see why it equals -1. So now I'm going to hide all this, and we're going to actually look at the algebra. So here's the algebra. And we start off with the problem, log of the square root of x is -1. I can rewrite this as x to the 1/2 power, because we're trying to use the laws of logs in order to isolate x. So the first thing I'm going to do is change that to a 1/2. Now, the power rule of logs says that if you raise a power to a power, you multiply the two exponents. Well, this is an exponent and this is an exponent, so I can bring the 1/2 down and say that's 1/2 log of x is equal to -1. Recall also, again, as I said earlier, that if there's no number here, it's assumed to be 10. So I'm going to rewrite this as log to the base 10 of x. I'm also going to get rid of this 1/2 by multiplying both sides by 2. So when I multiply this by 2 and this by 2, I get log to the base 10 of x is equal to -2. Now, the next thing I want to do is use the general definition of logs and say what we said here, right? So 10 to the -2 is equal to x. I always talk about going around the world. So you can sort of think of 10 to the -2 is equal to x. Okay? So in this case we have 10 to the -2 is equal to x. Well, 10 to the -2 is 1 over 10 squared, which is 1 over 100. So there's your final answer. Hope that helped.